Right, good morning everyone. So today I'm going to be talking about Angular 5 services. You might have seen from the media school channel that I'm going to be doing HTTP. Angular 5 introduced a new HTTP client. So that's the kind of the focus, but the actual focus is services. So we're going to be creating a service, and you guys are going to be learning about observables and how to use them. And so just to recap on what I've covered in like the last sessions, this is going to be the last session. So I'm just going to run through like some of the stuff that we covered just a little bit. Right. Where is this? Alright, cool. Let's see if I can pull this here. Alright, cool. So, like the first session was just about introducing Angular. We looked at components. We also looked at like the basics of TypeScript. As you can see, Angular is a single page application, and so it does things differently from traditional websites, which as you can see in the illustration, traditional websites, what would happen is that it would make a request for a new page each time. But as for a single page application, what it does is it just refreshes the bit that the user needs to see or whatever has been requested, and that obviously improves user experience, saves on resources, and as a result, it's very, very fast. And as you know, Angular is a JavaScript framework. So what usually happens is we make the first request, it gets us the page with the JavaScript in there, and using TypeScript to compile our code down to JavaScript, we can do other requests for pages that we might need. Basically, just for say you navigate from page to page, JavaScript will just load all those partials for you. Right. So the reason why I drew this up here is because we're going to be using services. So services are, just go back to my slide. Maybe let me just minimize this. If I can find. Alright, cool. So services are like the background worker. I'm pretty sure you guys know this by now. So for every application that is, services are normally the background workers and everything. So same with Angular. We use it to make calls to the API. So generally, you'll use a service just to make your application much more central. And I think in Fabric, actually Smashboard is a very good example of this. All the references to the messages that we're getting from the API centrally in the service layer, and that's where we would get everything from each controller. And I think it was used that way for how we're paging. I can't remember now, but yeah. So basically, we're going to be creating a service today. I'm just going to explain as we go through, like how we what's happening, and just for you guys to get a grip of what's happening. Okay. Alright, cool. So just gonna run this dummy application. So with every demo that I do here, I start from the boilerplate template that you would use if you were to create a new app. So if you run the CLI commands, it'll give you this app. And I do this so that we're not really distracted by all the stuff that could distract you if you had like a lot of components in there. So I try to make it as simple as possible. Okay. It loads. Alright, cool. So, as you can see here, we have a users table with the 3 records. We have name, email, and username, right? And here we have sort of like form, but it's not really a form. There's no validation here. This is just to add like records to that array that we have over there. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's see here. So I'm gonna say mail, and maybe I'll say here. Alright, cool. Okay, so it adds my name here, my email, and my username with an @ there. So let's just quickly look at this code. So as you can see here, there's my table headers, and also there's the data that I'm cycling through the users. So when I add users, I add it to this collection and display the name, display the email, and I just put an @ there in front of the username. And here in my form, as you can see here, I have ng model. So these are the fields in my TypeScript that I use to add a record. So this is just a dummy field here. I don't actually use it. What I want us to focus on now is what I'm doing here. So I'm not really advising this. I'm just saying this is what you could do. So as you can see here, when I add a I don't think it seems to be working. Yeah, I think it is. Alright, cool. So as you can see here, when I add a field, name seems to have disappeared. So here, I had name here, but as soon as I press submit, it disappeared. It's probably because here, I didn't spell mail properly. So basically what you could do is you could actually put multiple statements in your click event. So here it'll call the add user and also do a bunch of stuff that you would want it to do. Say maybe you wanted to call two methods with that click. That's what we would do. And my assumption on this is that it's synchronous, so it'll execute the other one before executing the next one, basically. Okay, so as you can see here, we have a nickname, a name. All those fields are showing you guys that we use to add a user, and this is the collection of that we had as a default, and this is how we add a new record. Alright, cool. So now what we want to do is we want to get data from an API, display it on our form, and then maybe create a new record and add it to that collection. So we won't actually be able to add an actual record to this particular API that I chose, but you guys will see how the call is made and everything. Okay, so I'm going to be using the JSON placeholder. I'll show you now. So I'm going to be using the JSON placeholder API. It's really quite useful for getting test data and everything. So we're going to try and display this on our. So this is the data set that you get from making this call. I'm pretty sure you guys all know, like if you type your URL here, the browser makes a get call to the API. Okay, so what I want is I want to display all this data in my user table. Yeah, that's what I want to do. I don't know, where do I start? Okay, let's start by creating the model. So in order for us to create the model, you can just come in here and say new file. Let's give it a nice name, say app-users user dot model dot TypeScript file. Alright, cool. So get an empty file here. So now but what I want to do is I want to make sure that, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's just say here export class user, then yeah. Alright, cool. So basically this is how you declare your class in TypeScript. So let's try now and map these this JSON into that TypeScript. There's actually quite useful tools online here. I'm pretty sure if you just say JSON to TypeScript, you will find maybe on the first go you'll find something that could do the job, and you just come in here, you copy this object from here. Okay, let's generate this. Alright, cool. So this is the So this is the model that we. So our TouchCode class should look something like this, with type company here, which is here, and yeah. So I've done this already. I'm just going to open it up. Why? Okay. Okay. No. Where is it now? I think if I. Oh, there you go. Okay, so this is our class now, and as you might have noticed in the other one, it had it as interfaces. I just like to use classes because there's a lot more that I want to do in my classes. For instance, what I want to do here is I want us to have a constructor. So weirdly enough, you say constructor here, and then you have say in our field here we have name, email, and username. So we'll maybe just do the same. Actually, maybe not here. Oh, maybe, okay, that's fine. We can carry on here and then we can just copy it through. So we'll just say name of type string, and then we'll say email of type string as well, and then what is this? Username of type string as well. Cool. Then we obviously just assign these values to log1 email. Okay. Then just say this dot username. Cool. And username. Cool. Now let's copy this. So you say all here, and then copy it into our new. This should be fine. Alright, cool. Okay, so now we've mapped this core. What we want to do now is okay, so if you read the documentation here, it says we should get users if we use this base URL and this as our request URL. Very cool. Now let's create a service that would handle these calls for us. Okay, so we'll go here. Nope. We'll go here, and we'll say ng generate, and then for short you'll just say G here. Service, for short you'll just say S, but you can write the whole thing. And then we'll just say app service. the service? App service. I think I'm spelling it wrong. There you go. Okay. Now, there's a couple of things that I need to walk you guys through here. Okay, so our service has been created. Damn it. That's not the name I was looking for. Just do this quickly. So let's do that rather. Right, cool. So, if we yes. All right, cool. So, this is what we get when we create our base service, and so as you can see here, we have an injectable. So this means that we're saying this you can inject providers into the service, and so providers being other services into the service.
Like C# injection.
Yes. So you guys know dependency injection, right? Right. So yeah. So we need this because we're going to be using HTTP client, so we need to inject that service in here. Yeah. And then, so what we'll need to do here is just say, this is how we'll inject our client. We'll just say private HTTP client of type HTTP client. That's referencing the wrong one. It's fine, we'll fix it. Okay, it's not the Selenium one. It should be from @Angular common. That one at Angular HTTP on Angular 6 is deprecated, and also it's the old one. So the new one resides in @common HTTP. Yeah. And then yeah. So right now, if we start using this, it won't really work. So we need to tell Angular that we're going to be using this service. So we need to inject providers. So we'll come in here and we'll say HTTP client module. No, it should just work. Okay. Now we've done that. Now let's create our first method. So we'll come in here. We'll say get users. Seems like a decent name for task. And then we'll say this dot HTTP dot get. Alright, cool. And then in here would be the string. And just to jog on a few things here. So we have your royal, obviously, and then that options is actually options that you could have in this request. So you can have headers. We're going to do that maybe in a second. And then you could also have your, I can't see it now. It's your headers, your response type, and there's one more, and parameters. So it's one of those three that you can pass in as your options. So we're going to be using headers. It's fairly trivial to do parameters. You guys can just figure that out later, maybe. Yeah. Okay, so I prefer having a host variable. So I'll do this. I'll do this. In a real world application, you wouldn't have it like this. It would be in your environments file. So yeah. So you have different environments here. You would add your environments depending on what the or project standard they would have or deem right as a right environment variable. Some prefer staging instead of development. Some staging for QA. Yeah. Okay. So you'd have your host, and then you'd have your URL, which is users, as you saw there. Alright, cool. So basically, that is all you need to make a request and to the API. But we obviously need the data that we getting there. So we'll say return. What this will do, it will return an observable. Right. What is an observable? An observable is something that lets publishers and subscribers in your application have a relationship. So a publisher could be anything, but most commonly it would be maybe like making a request to the API. But sometimes what would happen is it works similarly to a promise. I don't know if you guys know what promise is. It works similarly to a promise, but I think you could use observables in more cases than you would for promises. And so what would happen is that okay, so since we returning an observable, let's be explicit about it. We'll say here of type observable, and then as you can see here, it's getting in from RxJS, and then it always needs a type. For now, we'll say any. I just want to demonstrate something quickly. So as it stands, okay, let's go back to our code here. Should we refactor this quickly? Yeah, let's refactor this. Okay, so I want my users to be loaded when the application initializes. So how do we do this? We'll just say here implement on init. Did it do? Yes, so it's imported there. And then you implementing this lifecycle. Alright, cool. So Now, how do we use our service from here? Well, what you could do is there's actually two options. If you know that you're going to be using your service throughout your application, so it's not just going to be two components, or it's not just going to be one component using it. Then what you do is you declare it on a global scale, so on your app module level. So you would come here, and then you'd put it in your providers, and there any component would be able to access it. But since we know that we're just going to be using it for our app component, we can just declare it here. So we can just say here providers and then it's normally an array of providers, so we'll be using, what is this now? App piece of service. Cool. Just put that there, and then it doesn't know what we're talking about. So do this. Yeah, that is the path. Yes. So yeah. Right. Cool. So this is okay now, but we also need to inject this in here. So we come here in our constructor. We'll just say private and then private user service user service, come on. Oh, app user service, sorry. App user service. Bam. Alright, cool. And obviously we need to do that, or maybe just that. Alright, cool. So the reason why it's great like that is because it's not being used right now. So I'll just come here and say this dot user service dot get users. I think that's what we need. Yeah. So basically that's it. So who thinks this thing is gonna work? Like right now, we just start running this. Who thinks it's gonna work? You don't think it's gonna work? Why?
I think it's because we haven't specified like the objects we need that are related to return, like a name, for example. That type of thing, an ID, everything. That's what I would.
Cool. So, okay, let's no. Okay, so let's come in here. Okay, so what you're saying is that we need to be more explicit about how we. Okay, so there's this nice thing that we could do here. The reason why I declared my or I created my class is so that we could map it dynamically to it. So what this new HTTP client offers us is you can now so by default it'll return the body. So in a promise you'd have to specify that give me the body, or sometimes it would be data. Yeah, but here it naturally assumes you want the body and naturally assumes it's going to be JSON, which is in my opinion fair. So what you could do is, what Angular offers you now is that you could actually have a type here that it can map it to. Cool. So what you see here? Users. User. And obviously this is returning an observable, but it's of type object, which is of type any, which is not this observable. So what we do is, you guys have a question?
No,
Right.
I'm happy with this.
Yeah.
It makes me.
Alright, cool. So, and then since it wants us to be more explicit, we just come here and just say user, and then voila. So now this will return an observable that is of type user. Right, cool. So who thinks this is gonna work now? Wait, is it showing? Oh yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's the one there. Maybe let's take these and put them in here. I'm shuffling down things around. Right, cool. So who thinks this is gonna work? Come on, guys. It was just eventually, you can bet on this.
It's gonna work.
It's gonna work.
It's gonna work.
It's gonna work. All right. Well, Van is kinda right and is also wrong as well. It's strange, eh? Right?
Random question. Why are you going to the public on your public?
A what?
Why are you public on public?
Where?
In your public. In public.
Inside the overloaded
Should be public title. Public name. Public name.
Oh, no, those, okay, so those, you can do that, but if you don't declare anything, they obviously just become private. Yeah, but you can say.
It was intentional to make it private.
Yeah. Well, cool. So Van is right and is wrong, right? So what should happen is it should give us back an observable, but now that's not how observable work. You don't just call it and then everything just starts. Okay, so what needs to happen is that your observable, you can do whatever you want, right? You can call it, but if there are no subscribers, that function or that bit of work that it's supposed to do will not happen. It will not execute until there's at least one subscriber, right? Which is strange because you have to think about, like, how does Angular know if they're subscribers or not? Yeah. So but also my thinking is that that would save resources because it'll only be executed when it's needed. When it's needed is when you subscribe to it. Right, cool. So let's subscribe to our thing. So we'll subscribe here, and then we'll say data. And then say, I like doing this, but you don't have to. It could just be one line. And then in here you could say console.log. Here's my log. Console log. Let's log the data that's coming back. Cool. Very cool. Let's see if this works. It should just execute upon. It should just execute upon the app going up. So as we run our app on NGEvent, it should just make that call, and we should see it on our console. And then quickly, what we're gonna do after that is just set our headers and see how we can map this into our current implementation. So we're going to try and replace users with the users that we're getting from the API. Right, cool. Let's see what happened. So it's popping up my side here. Where are you? Cool. Ish, what happened? Cool. Let's reload this. Alright, cool. So as you can see here, it's getting our data set. So this is on the network tab. There you go. So were able to log this. So now we need to display it on our table. So this should be simple. All we need to do now is come in here. So in here, this is where, okay. Okay. Let's do this quickly. We'll just say this uses is to data. Okay, so there's already a type there. That's why it's screaming. And let's just do this. Users. Nope. Let's just say users of type user. Alright, cool. Guys, I've been doing this too much for you guys not to know what I should do here. So, how am I going to return, or how am I going to make this an array of users? Want you?
The brackets.
Exactly. Come on, guys. Alright, alright, cool. So, yeah, we just say brackets there. And this.
Like you know it, but you just still. You might be wrong.
Because it's still here. Alright, cool. So we'll remove this. What's wrong now? It's not assignable. I'll type any. Oh. So we made a mistake here. There's supposed to be an array of these users. Boom. Hi, go. What's wrong? Cannot find user.
Maybe it's lowercase. No?
Oh, I didn't import it. Right, cool. What is this? Why am I still getting red? Oh, okay, cool. All right. Okay, let's comment this out for now. We just want to see the users first. Then we'll come back to this. Cool. Boom. Alright, cool. So we have our users here that we're getting from the API. Now, what we need to do is we need to add users here. But before we do that, let me just fix a couple of things here. So here, this is supposed to be email. This is supposed to be nickname. Damn it. And then, all right, cool. All right, so let's just quickly go and add headers. So for our current call that we're making, if you come here to the headers, we have our response headers. As I told you, it naturally assumes that we're trying to get JSON, and also here it assumes that you want to get back JSON, but yeah. Right, cool. So now, I wanna. So here it says accept JSON. What I want to do is I want to explicitly say accept JSON instead of accept text and then blah blah blah. So let's go here. Okay, so here we just come through and this should be simple. Sorry. We declare it as a constant because it won't change. And then you say headers, and then you say new HTTP headers. Should just import it in the right place. Yeah, it did. And then you say headers dot append the header that you wanna put in there. So we're trying to edit the one for accepting. And you can also say here, so the value would be application application slash JSON. So and then so they're supposed so if you want to do this officially, you'd have to say new options, and then you take that options, and then you add your headers in there. But as a quick thing to do here, you can just say so this would represent the options object, and then the options object has headers, as I told you guys, and you can just assign the headers that you declared here. This should just work. Cool. Let's see what are you add headers. But what I want to do now is I want to be able to make a post request now. So I want to add a user. So what we can do is we could do something similar like this, but we'll just say here yeah we'll just say add user, and then we'll pass in an object. So we'll say here we'll have a create user object. Let's have this. Let's go back to our models. Let's go back to our models. And then in here, obviously you just say export class. Alright, and then I just need these fields. Actually, let's steal something here. We will steal this as well. We won't need it in there. So we have our constructor now. So we'll just say user of type this guy. Cool. Then we will do something like that, and then we'll say post. Right. So we don't show the documentation, so I won't bother trying to show you guys the documentation for post. But what happens is it returns the object that we're posting with an ID. So it'll be this create user, and it'll be this host post. Is it posts? Yeah, I think so. And then in here will be the data that we're trying to post. So and then we'll say user, then yeah. Well, cool. Now let's go back to our TypeScript code here. So as you can see, this is giving us errors because we're not really doing it the right way. So we can just say new. What is this now? Create. Create user. Then we can just have let's start name. Then also the email here. And then also the start nickname. Here we're just gonna say const, because we're not gonna change this, and then I'm just gonna say new user here. And then we're gonna try and use our service again. User service dot add user. It's expecting a new user or create user object here, and then obviously we subscribe. Otherwise, it doesn't allow us. Oh, it doesn't execute. Sorry. And then we'll just say this. So will only put the values that are coming back from the server. So we'll say here, structure here. Shouldn't have moved it here. So we'll just say here data. So we'll say new user equals data dot name data dot email data dot username. That should just work. Extra bracket there. Alright, cool. And then, okay, let's see if this works first. Okay, so we still have a list of users here. And then you can say so yeah, let's do that. And then we'll just see. So and if we submit, it should clear and also add me here. And then if we come here to our post method, this is just an options call. So it should come here. So these are our headers. And then this is the data that we got back. And you see here, it made us a new ID there. Yeah, and then what is it? Something I want to show you. Yeah. And then okay, so you guys have to be wondering, what if something goes wrong, right? It's not good. It's not going to be always sunshine and whatever, you know. Something's going to go wrong. Server's going to be down. So what do you do there? Do you just let your app crash, or do you handle it gracefully? So what you do is, since we're subscribing, so this first part here is a success, and the second part should be the error. So if we come in here, as you can see here, there's an error. So yeah, we go here, and then this is an alternative way of doing it. You can just say
So is this just telling the user, hey,
yeah,
you what network is down, or would it be a specific error, or
it'll be it'll be response error that that you would have from trying to get the server. But since it's an observable, it'll be any exception thrown.
okay.
Yeah. So then you just have to log this. Something's wrong here. Not supposed to do that. Yeah. Alright, cool. So hey, I don't really know how to make this crash, but I'll try my best. Yeah, so I think there's a no internet button that we can press. Yes, offline. So let's try and make our call again. So we'll do that. What's happening now? We'll do that, and then we'll do that. So we should be logging an exception. There you go. It failed. So there you go. It logged our stuff. And you can see here HTTP failure response URL unknown because couldn't. So we couldn't get to the server. So we log our. So yeah. So So you guys know how to add now a service and get users and all that stuff. So yeah, so basically that wraps up. Sorry, I should. So basically that wraps up this Angular session. So you guys can just let me know if you want any more sessions for the stuff that you might have missed. I know I'd happily do it, but obviously it would be in Angular 6 because that's the new version now. There's a bunch of JavaScript stuff that I'm willing to share. If you guys are interested, just let me know. That's it, guys.